my name is Gail Sawyer, Chair of the Acton Public Ceremonies and Celebrations Committee. This year, due to the coronavirus pandemic, we have changed how we are observing Memorial Day. Usually we have a parade with public ceremonies, with school bands, speakers, scouts, and sports groups marching to the cemetery. This year we have made arrangements to broadcast the entire lineup of events that we normally do on Memorial Day. We will give a brief history of each monument and cemetery that are decorated every Memorial Day. So let us begin. If you would like to join me in the invocation, please bow your heads. On this day, we call to mind those who gave their lives so that our nation might live. A loss that its preservation should have entailed the loss of so much treasure, should have brought so much suffering, should have demanded so many young and promising young lives. The only fitting memorial to those sacrifices is our self-dedications to the task of abolishing all inner strife, hatred, and bitterness from among us, from the faith of America. God, in the spirit of community, we pause to remember lives lost and lives forever changed in war. May we also remember your great love for us, and that there is no greater demonstration of love than to lay down one's life for another. Grant that our reflections today honor those who made that choice, as well as those many more willing to do so if called upon. To honor their legacy, we commit ourselves to be more vigilant in our love for others, for our nation, and the cause of freedom, justice, and peace throughout the world. Amen. We will now have the Fitzgerald family of Scouts from Acton place wreaths at the memorials and cemeteries throughout town. Though the North Acton Cemetery, located at the corner of Carlisle Road and North Acton, was established in 1750, it was in use much before then. 7 marked graves of soldiers in the Revolutionary War have been identified. Samuel Davis, Henry Flint, Israel Heald, John Heald, Timothy Heald, Samuel Temple, and James Wright. And the graves of 2 soldiers from the Civil War were also noted, Francis Anderson and Francis Hutchinson. Woodlawn Cemetery on Concord Road was established in 1737, making it the 2nd oldest cemetery in Acton. The oldest marked grave in the cemetery is from 1740. It contains graves from colonial times to present. Corporal Nathaniel Allen awarded the highest medal in this country, the Congressional Medal of Honor, for his bravery on the 2nd day of the Battle of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on July 2nd, 1863, when, while bearing the national colors, he also saved his regiment's flag while under enemy fire. Woodlawn has graves of servicemen and women from the Revolutionary War to the present. Mount Hope Cemetery was established in 1848. It is a well-preserved and well-maintained Victorian burial ground in West Acton. Mount Hope contains graves of servicemen and women from the 1840s to the present. Howard L. Quimby Square, located at the corner of Main and School Streets in South Acton, was dedicated Memorial Day 1923, named after Howard Quimby, who died in the service during World War I. He served with Battery A, 304th Field Artillery, 77th Division. A floral spray will also be placed on Fort Pond Brook in memory of all those veterans of the Coast Guard, Navy, and merchant seamen who died at sea in the time of war. Sidney J. Edwards Square, located in West Acton between Mass Ave, Central Street, and Arlington Street, was dedicated in 1924 to honor Sidney Edwards, who died in the service of his country during World War I. The Isaac Davis Monument on the town common commemorates the first officer to have fallen on April 19, 1775, at the start of the Revolutionary War, Captain Isaac Davis. Also interred at the monument are Abner Hosmer and James Hayward, who also fell that day. The Civil War Memorial is located at the old entrance into the Memorial Library, honoring more than 150 soldiers. The Spanish American Memorial, placed to the right of the Town Hall on Main Street, honors 13 soldiers from Acton. The World War I Memorial sits to the left of Town Hall on Main Street. This memorial is dedicated to the more than 110 soldiers who fell in that conflict. The World War II Korea-Vietnam Memorial Bench is located on Concord Road, near the Center Fire Station. The Veterans Memorial is placed on the town common to honor all veterans and active service personnel of the United States Armed Services. Its inscription in part reads, "We honor your service and recognize the hardship of your loved ones. We welcome you home while remembering those who have made the ultimate sacrifice." At this point, I would like to introduce the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Ms. Joan Gardner, who will now read the list of veterans who have been laid to rest.
Norman Leon Askew, World War II, Navy. Arthur E. Ofaria, World War II, Army. Walter N. Bauer, Vietnam, Army. Willis Bean, Korea, Air Force. Joseph Henry Block, World War II, Army. Herbert M. Blodgett, World War II, Navy. John Anthony Bracow, Lebanon, Army. Carol Bryan, Jr., World War II, Army Air Force. Charles E. Callahan, Vietnam, Navy. Catherine Carell, Army. Sally Olson Davis, World War II, Navy. Michael Scott Dees, Peacetime, Army. Douglas J. Detweiler, Vietnam, Marine Corps. Louis D. Mambro, Korea, Air Force. Dow George Dow, Korea, Navy. Joseph W. Dunphy, Korea, Army. Peter James Doran, Jr., Peacetime, Army. Stuart R. Eldred, Vietnam, Army. Robert A. Frost, Sr., Korea, Navy. Edmund A. Giannotto, Vietnam, Air Force. Larry J. Godfrey, Vietnam, Air Force. Paul Green, World War II, Army. John Alden Hall, Jr., unknown, Army. Joseph Heer, Korea, Army. Hiltrud G. Hole, Vietnam, Air Force. Clifton N. Jacobs, Jr., World War II, Navy. Ronald Koning, Sr., Air Force. Alphonse Chrysanil, Korea, Air Force. Douglas Allen Locke, Jr., Vietnam, Army. Malcolm McGregor, Sr., World War II, Marine Corps. Anthony Maimoni, Korea, Navy. Frank F. Massac, Korea, Army. William John Musto, Korea, Army. Charles Philip Nader, Korea, Air Force. Alan Herbert Nelson, Korea, Air Force. Maurice Amy Pichette, Peacetime, Army. William B. Porter, Jr., World War II, Navy. William R. Pyro, World War II, Navy. Aurelia A. Roy, Korea, Air Force. Franklin Oliver Smith, World War II, Merchant Marines. Joseph R. Smith, Korea, Army. Richard J. Sawyer, Jr., World War II, Navy. Walter A. Stevens, Sr., World War II, Coast Guard. Kenneth Ray Swain, World War II, Navy. Edward C. Timlidge, Korea, Army. Arthur Donald Ulrich, Korea, Navy. Elliot J. Walsh, Army. David Charles Wilson, Vietnam, Army. Carl Robert Zelnick, Vietnam, Marine Corps.
And now the Acton Minutemen will fire 3 volleys.
Prime and low! Shoulder your firelocks. Make ready. Present. Fire. Shoulder your firelocks. Make ready. Present. Fire. Shoulder your firelock. Make ready. Present. Fire.
I would like to introduce James MacRae, Veteran Services Coordinator for the town of Acton and the town of Boxborough.
Welcome to those currently joining us to pay tribute to those who have passed away. As Joan Gardner had recently read the names of the deceased in the last year, one of those names is Alphonse Crissinel. Alphonse was the Grand Marshal on Memorial Day ceremonies in 2016. And with that in mind, we now take you to Memorial Day 2016 for the introduction of Alphonse Crissinel as Grand Marshal and his remarks. This year's Grand Marshal was born in 1929 at 6 Pleasant Street in Maynard, a location that was previously part of South Acton. He has fond memories of playing along the original Indian Trail along the Assabet River. At the age of 14, he began working on the Victor E. Peppard Farm, originally known as the Jones Grant Farm in South Acton, and continued working there throughout his high school years. After graduating from Maynard High School in 1947, he began working as a meat cutter in the A&P grocery store in Maynard. He joined the Air Force in January of 1951, and with the experience of being a meat cutter, he needed no job training in this field. He served as a meat cutter on the Sampson Air Force Base in New York at the commissary and mess hall until deploying to Korea in September of 1952. After completing a 12-month tour in Korea, he returned stateside, now with the rank of Staff Sergeant, and worked as a meat cutter at the Amarillo Air Force Base in Texas. He was honorably discharged from the United States Air Force in November of 1953. After the service, he returned home and started work again at the A&P while attending night school in Boston to become an electronic technician. He married his wife Helen in 1954. After graduating night school in the spring of 1956, he found employment at General Radio, now known as Genrad, working on the assembly line. Having a creative mind, he invented small work aids to improve one's own production. Using such gadgets was noticed by management positively, as this caused production numbers to increase over the average rate. He then began to work there as a service technician, and over the years worked his way through the steps wearing many hats over a 25-year period before retiring from Genrad as a standards and calibrations technician in 1989. After retirement, he started his own business in Acton called Acton Service, where he repaired electronics for a number of years. In 1990, he began rehabbing an old house in Florida, where he continues to reside during the winter months. He and his wife ran the annual old-fashioned Polish polka picnics in Maynard for 15 years, and over time, the proceeds from this event covered the cost of refurbishing the St. Casimir's Church in Maynard. He has been an Acton resident for 57 years, a current member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and a current active member of the Florida Gulf Coast Korean War Veterans Association, He is a father to 4 children, all of which are graduates of Acton Boxborough High School, grandfather to 5 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. It is my honor to announce to you this year's Grand Marshal, Alphonse Crisnell. There it is.
Thank you, Jim MacRae, for a beautiful introduction. Thank you all wonderful people for being here. All you wonderful people for being here. Especially all of you who took this long march on this rainy morning. I just saluted the POW MIA flag with a prayer in memory of all the missing in action through all previous wars. Moreover, I saluted in the memory of Jimmy Rodway, who was a friend and neighbor of mine in Maynard. Jimmy was one of the first men drafted from this area to fight in the Korean War in 1950. He was also the first man from this area to be wounded and not to return home. Shakespeare once said to a friend, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." And that is why we are gathered here to remember the men and women who gave their lives for this country. In closing, this holiday serves as a most important reminder that we will never forget the sacrifices made by our military members in the past, in the present, and in the future. Thank you all for this honor of having me as Grand Marshal.
And now we will have the benediction, if you would please join us in prayer. May the remembrance of the price we paid for our life as a nation impel us to seek justice, to foster freedom, and to pursue the ways of peace. May our nation be a source of blessing to all its people and to the rest of mankind. Amen. Thank you for your patience and understanding during this difficult time of pandemic COVID-19. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families that have lost loved ones. We hope that you all are staying safe and healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic. This concludes the Memorial Day program.